All right, welcome to Project 121, where I'm going to be picking a hobby, an activity, or a topic, be diving headfirst into it and documenting my entire experience over 21 days. All right, now this November I started my first Project 121 right here in the Canadian Rockies with one of our most iconic activities, cross-country skiing. All right, now in this place where I live, there's literally hundreds of cross-country ski trails to choose from. But even more importantly, the town where I live, Canmore, is home of our Canadian biathlon and cross-country ski Olympic teams. It's the home of our Olympic training center and the home of the Canmore Nordic Center, which has over 65 kilometers of man-made, machine-made, and natural trails right here in Canmore. But despite this, it is early in the cross-country ski season in Canada, but luckily the Canmore Nordic Center has a little trick up its sleeve, and it's called Frozen Thunder. All right, now this guy is Garrett Coyne. He's the acting operations supervisor here at the Canmore Nordic Center. And among other responsibilities, one of his main ones is to give our Olympic athletes a little bit of a head start. Now, how does he do that? The secret actually lies out here in the woods. All right, now during the winter, these snow machines make a lot of extra snow. 12 to 15,000 cubic meters of extra snow to be exact. Now, Garrett grooms the snow, they pack it, they transport it out into the woods, they dig a giant hole, they fill that hole up with snow, they cover the hole with sawdust, and they leave it there the entire summer. In October, he heads out to the woods, he uncovers his buried treasure, brings the snow back to Frozen Thunder, grooms the trails, and prepares it for our Olympic athletes to begin training. It is pretty crazy. So my week one goal was to really take advantage of Frozen Thunder, build up a bit of a base for my cross-country skiing ability, and prepare myself for the big challenge at the end of this 21 days, which is coming soon. Just hang tight. All right, now Frozen Thunder is actually split up into a series of loops, the easiest of which is called loop number 3, which is 0.96 kilometers. It starts right here at the biathlon stadium. It climbs up into the woods, takes a hard left turn and dives deep down with a big slope, and then it ends with a couple bunny hills before coming back to Olympic Stadium. Now on day number 1, it took me over 1 hour to complete this loop. Now that's actually a 20-minute split, and for comparison's sake, the current best time on Strava for this same loop is 1 minute and 58 seconds. As you can see, I have a long way to go. So during the day, this route and all of the routes here at Frozen Thunder are only open to Olympic athletes. Then after noon, it is open to the general public with a ski pass that you can purchase at the Nordic Center. And then after 5 p.m., it's completely free. The only catch is that the Nordic Center here in Canmore actually gets dark at 5 p.m. So after 5 p.m., you're skiing completely in the dark, and you better bring a headlamp. But every single day during week 1, you could find me here at the Nordic Center, whether it was during the day or at night with a headlamp, just working on my cardio, building up my skills for cross-country skiing, and getting ready for that big challenge. And by the end of week 1, I was ready to start to test my skills with a little bit of a mini challenge. Now my week 1 goal was to do 10 laps in under an hour at loop number 3 here at Frozen Thunder. I ended up doing it in just over an hour and 6 minutes to be exact, and I'm pretty happy with that. It actually places me 587th on Strava, but for a week of training and getting used to cross-country skiing, I'm pretty excited about that progress. Let's talk about that big goal that I've been teasing this entire video. The big goal for this 21-day project is to be able to do the 30-kilometer round-trip ski to one of the most iconic and beautiful places, maybe on Earth, Moraine Lake here in the Canadian Rockies. Every summer, this iconic lake with the amazing turquoise blue water draws thousands of tourists from around the world. But in the winter, it's a little bit different. In the summer, Moraine Lake sits at the end of a 2-lane road with a parking lot that probably accommodates 200 plus cars. There are people taking photos, there are canoe rentals, there's a lodge. It is a very busy place. In the winter, the lodge is a ghost town, the tourists are hibernating, that 9-kilometer road becomes completely snowed in, the parking lot becomes a frozen swimming pool of ice and snow, and there's an avalanche zone. I kind of forgot to mention that part. In the winter, very few people get the chance to experience Moraine Lake. It is possible though, it just requires skis. And that is why it's the 21-day challenge. Now, before we get to Moraine Lake, I've actually got a couple smaller goals for week number 2. One is to find some trails outside of the Nordic Center, and 2, to try out a couple different types of cross-country skis and purchase some for my own. Now, to know the gear you need and the trails you need to try, you've got to know a little bit more about cross-country skiing. The term cross-country skiing is often interchanged with the term Nordic skiing. There is a difference between the two, and it primarily comes down to the terrain. While cross-country skiing is generally associated with gentle slopes, groomed trails, and something we call a track, Nordic skiing is associated with off-track skiing and much more steeper or Nordic terrain. There is another category, and that's called ski touring, but we're going to get to that in an entirely different video. For now, let's just focus on fairly flat, groomed trails and the types of skiing that you're going to find there. A typical cross-country ski trail is going to look a little something like this, where the snow's been packed or rolled and then tracked with these little grooves just bigger than a cross-country ski. Now, traditional classic cross-country skis are thin, skinny, about 2/3 the width of these tracks, and they're propelled by pushing back on one ski while pushing back on a pole at the same time and sort of gliding forward with the opposite ski. It's a piece of cake, right? These types of skis traditionally have 2 types of grips on the bottom. Some use crowns, which are like these little tiny fish scales, and some use skins, which are kind of mimicking the feeling of animal fur. Both are very smooth when you glide one way and very rough when you push the other way. Another thing that's really distinguishable about most classic skis is they don't have those traditional metal edges you get on your downhill skis. This can be very comical to new skiers trying to learn the sport, and especially comical to people watching. There is a type of ski that does have these little metal edges. It's called a light touring ski. The difference is it's a little wider than the classic skis I've been using. Now, this type of traditional classic skiing technique dominated the arenas of competitive skiing all the way up to the 1980s, when this guy made waves with this new type of ski technique called skate skiing. Skate skiing is now considered the faster of these techniques under most conditions. It works by kind of pushing your skis back in a technique similar to an ice skater. In week number 2, I got a chance to try out this light touring skis. It feels a lot safer on these skis, a lot more comfortable, a lot more controlled. And I got a chance to try skate skiing, which quite frankly, I've seen people do this and it's terrifying to me, but
it's a great place to start. And from there, we can sort of take it down and build ourselves back up again.
I did consider purchasing either these light touring skis or the skate skis, but at the end of the day, I just chose to pick up a pair of Fisher skis here at the Canmore Nordic Center at Trail Sports, and a great pair of Solomon boots to go right along with them. So with these new skis and some new skiing techniques under my belt, I was really anxious to get out and explore some of the amazing cross-country ski trails here in the Canadian Rockies. There unfortunately isn't a great app like Trail Forks or All Trails for cross-country skiing. The closest is probably an app and a website called Ski Trails. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover all the trails here in the Canadian Rockies and may not cover the trails in your area. If you're skiing in any of the national parks here, the best bet is to go to the Parks Canada website, where you'll get all the up-to-date information on the latest ski conditions. Regardless of what system you use, most of these apps are going to give you information on the location of the trail, the length of the trail, the difficulty, the conditions, and when it was last groomed. My entire 21-day challenge, there was actually only a half dozen trails or so that were open here. There was Elk Pass. This is one of the few trails in the Kananakis that are actually open right now. There's the Great Divide Trail. This is kind of the view that we're dealing with. It's pretty amazing. And there's Moraine Lake Road. Speaking of which, I had to start getting serious about moving into week 3. In about a week's time, I'd be trying to add my name to the list of a few hundred people or so that do the 24-kilometer round trip to Moraine Lake in the winter. Unfortunately, this winter, the actual parking lot to Moraine Lake is closed for construction, so you have to add on another 4-kilometer, which makes the whole round trip just under 30 kilometers. It was really time that I started taking this thing seriously. So I hired an instructor. This is Jessica, who is right over here. She's a level 4 certified Nordic ski instructor. She taught me how to fall. That's a lesson I could have used a lot earlier. She taught me a solid, proper climbing technique, how to handle these steep, winding downhills on Moraine Lake Road, and she even taught me how to put on a backpack without taking off your ski poles. probably most importantly, she taught me a very essential skill, which was how to stop. Believe it or not, I actually went 2 weeks of cross-country skiing without learning how to do this, and it was a skill that I was very happy to learn before I went and tackled the Moraine Lake Road. Finally, after 21 days of training, the big day came. We are here at Lake Louise. This is the upper tramline trail which leads to Moraine Lake. This is Alex. We work together in my day job. He spent decades here in the Canadian Rockies, leading groups out into the backcountry. He agreed to lead myself and 2 friends, Jenna and Pete, out to Moraine Lake Road. Jenna and Pete were along for the adventure and to help me with some of the filming, which can get very difficult, especially when you're just learning how to cross-country ski. We started out by renting all the necessary avalanche safety gear from Wilson Sports. We checked the latest avalanche conditions for the day. We planned out our route, tested our equipment, and headed off to Moraine Lake. The first 2 kilometers of that upper tramline trail and the first 9 kilometers of Moraine Lake Road are perfectly groomed for cross-country skiing. Now at the end, things get a little bit more interesting. You can see there have been people that have gone further, but this is sort of the start of the avalanche zone. So we're stopped here to observe the conditions again to see if anything changed.
It got warmer, right? Significantly warmer, but the sun's warm, but it's still cold. The air's pretty cold.
The next 3 kilometers of this trip would be
mainly just watching for when we cross that slope and when we do single, one person at a time.
Okay. You can actually see these slide paths right here on Google Maps. Looking at the tree growth, you can actually kind of figure out when the last time one of these avalanches happened, and by the width and distance of the slide, you can tell how big the actual slide was. Now, this early in the season, the actual risk of an avalanche is fairly low, but the consequences are incredibly high. You've got to be very, very diligent and careful. Now, luckily, a previous group left a little path for us, so we headed out, crossed the avalanche terrain, down into the Valley of 10 Peaks, the home of Moraine Lake. All right, we've reached the parking lot of Moraine Lake, and this is what we're dealing with. In the summer, this place is packed. By 5 o'clock. You can't find a parking spot. And here today in the winter, it is the only ones up here. Pretty freaking special. Making this trip to Moraine Lake at the end of this 21-day challenge is absolutely a dream come true for me. It is one of the most magical places in the world, and having to work so hard over those 21 days to build up the ability to make this trip and then to do the actual trip itself, to have Moraine Lake all to ourselves, was just incredibly rewarding. I couldn't have asked for a better spot to end this 21-day challenge. When we finally got back to our vehicles some 30 kilometers and 7 hours later, it's really impossible to explain the feeling. Actually, it's really easy to explain. It felt like my entire body got hit by a train. But after a few days of sleep and recovery, I was back to normal and ready for the next 21-day challenge. Which brings us right here to December. Now, with most of Canada completely locked down due to COVID, I really was searching for something that I could do, and I think I have an idea. So, over the next 21 days right here in December, I'm actually going to be writing a screenplay. As scary as that is, and as unexperienced I am in this area, I thought, you know what? This is going to be a great way to kind of take a leap of faith and dive in and set up another 21-day challenge. Now, just like this cross-country ski project, along the way, I want to share as much information as I can on my progress on social media. And when the 21 days are done and the screenplay is finally written, I'm going to be sharing this entire experience as another YouTube video right here on this channel. Honestly, thank you so much for coming along on this YouTube journey with me. These videos are not easy to make. It is a lot of work, but it's so rewarding to hit that publish button and see all the likes and comments coming in from people in this community. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. And until the next one, I'll see you soon.